So, earlier this year in May, a certain event took place upon this channel you may be familiar with. This event was the release of Super PKR World, a full game's worth of levels packed into a world via Super Mario Maker 2, and it came complete with a very silly trailer.
New Super
PKR
World, created especially for the
Super Mario Maker 2
entertainment system. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
Now that the game has been out for a while, I figured it was about time I actually showed it off and did some developer commentary. Thus, today we'll be starting off with World 1. And should you wish to play the world, just take a gander at the ID on screen to go search it up, yo! How do I even begin describing the ordeal that was building all of this? Super PKR World was the result of a sudden burst of inspiration brought on by the World's update to Mario Maker 2. My goal was to build a full, 40-level, cohesively designed game that mostly followed traditional design styles, but which ramped up to be harder than official games. All 40 levels were made post-update, so while I had plenty to draw from in my catalog already, I wanted to make sure every level in the world followed the same design philosophy so there would be no weird outliers. The levels were made in sequential order, so A Gentle Breeze here was the very first one. Naturally, I wanted to start the game off nice and easy, with only very minor risks and plenty of power-ups. Indeed, most of the game puts the first power-up before any real danger shows up. I also made an effort to pepper different flavors of secrets throughout the whole experience. Secret rooms like this are in many of the game's stages, so keep an eye out. Another thing to note is the 10 coin. With the invention of Dragon Coins in Super Mario World, further evolved into Star Coins in the New Bros series, I decided to use the 10 coin as my equivalent to those. There are 5 to find in each and every stage. Can you collect them all? I will be showing many of the game's secrets throughout this playthrough, so if you do not want to be spoiled on a bunch of them, then perhaps try playing it first. With that said, I added in so many small ones that by now I'm fairly certain I do not even remember them all, so probably should have made this sooner. About the stage though, easy stages are deceptively difficult to make. While making a stage with very little danger is simple enough, without further effort, it will just be boring. It is important to add moments of excitement and engagement for the player to enjoy. This stage adds some via secrets, slides, shell shenanigans, and little references like this 3 made from coins. All of this comes together to add a little replay value to an otherwise pretty standard grassland stage. Be prepared for a lot of very Mario Bros. 3 style levels in this world, as it is the stage design I tend to favor the most. Moving right along from a very Mario 3 flavored 1-1 comes a very Mario 1 flavored 1-2. In order to have enough ideas for 40 levels, I decided to use most of the themes available to Mario Maker 2, except 3D World. Structurally, each world has one level of the 4 main styles and one repeat. 3D World ended up getting neglected as it simply changes the overall mechanics of the game more than I would like for keeping the full 40 levels as cohesive as possible. Speaking of cohesion, while the entire game does not follow this as diligently as other ideas, I did put some effort into having a sort of theme to the elements used in each world. For example, here in World 1, you'll see a large emphasis on P-switches and, later on, seesaws. The basic idea was to have the world's main gimmicks slowly introduced and iterated on throughout the 5 levels of the world. This focus on a couple of main gimmicks helped make production a little bit easier, as I did not have to think of a brand new thing to experiment with for each and every new level like you normally end up doing with Super Mario Maker courses. In regards to these first 2 stages, 1-1 did not have any essential P-switches, but plenty of bonus ones to get you used to their existence, while 1-2 starts using them for slightly more demanding tasks, like running to a secret or unlocking paths. Thankfully, with easier levels like this, I have some more wiggle room for making branching paths. Super Mario Maker has a rather limiting amount of screen real estate to work with if you're making more basic levels, and more often than not, I prefer to keep levels one screen in height for easier visibility. So I need to keep diverting the player with collectibles and secrets to keep them from playing for more than like 30 seconds. Overall, the goal is simple: fun distractions. If people want to speed through the stages without paying Secret to any mind, that is fine. But it's nice to reward the explorers out there too. Speaking of, there's one Easter egg that is the most obscure one of all that is out there for you completionists in the crowd. In every stage, I hit at least one hidden block containing a pig sound effect, and at least one hidden block containing a baby face sound effect. Only some will show up in this playthrough. Can you find one of each in all 40 levels? That concludes the Overgrown Caverns stage, however. While these initial stages are quick and to the point, I at least like to dress them up a bit so they still stand out. Taking the time to actually nicely detail your level goes a long way towards making it memorable. The amount of stages out there that just draw the basic skeleton of their platforms without even bothering to fill in the walls is just kinda sad. One thing I want to stress is how important these one-up bonuses are in Super PKR World. While the initial difficulty does not make it seem like it, a surplus of lives becomes crucially important the further in you go. Take the time while the game is easier and farm up, or you will regret it later. Unsurprisingly, the newer game engines in Super Mario Maker tend to lend themselves well to simpler, rompy levels. The addition of such safety tricks like wall jumps and mid-air spins complement a loose-air, more free-flowing style of stage. Swaying in the Wind here takes this to heart by giving the player plenty of different routes they can take and some simple little puzzles to solve involving the introduction of seesaws. I still really like how I got the Koopa at the start to gently demonstrate how they work. Seesaws are an interesting beast in this game. You would think their usage is pretty simple, but in reality, getting them to cooperate with more complex setups is a huge pain, especially with something as simple as allowing an enemy to walk up to a higher platform. They're fine for a general obstacle, but be prepared to fight with their size and positioning a while if you try to do anything more complicated. This stage also ends up briefly introducing on-off switches and rails. An absurd amount of creativity can be crafted out of these deceptively simple elements, so be prepared to see them a lot. Of note, most of the area below the seesaw ride is perfectly safe, so falling is not much of a risk. The world's update to Super Mario Maker 2 added quite a few new elements to the game that facilitates the creation of a world's worth of levels. One of these new elements is the Super Acorn from New Super Mario Bros. U. While the propeller suit serves a very similar purpose, the Super Acorn allows for a bit more excitement via the gliding feature. I ended up choosing it over the propeller suit for a stage's big power-up more often than not. On a related note, most of the power-ups in Super PKR World are progressive, so if you survive with your mushroom for a while, the next power-up block is almost guaranteed to be something good. Try to hang in there and see what goodies you can get rewarded with. Coupling with this, every single checkpoint in the entire game rewards you with a mushroom if you need one, much like in any of the official games starting from Super Mario World. This means you'll generally get a chance at sections following checkpoints with a good power-up the first time you reach them. Of note, do keep an eye out for indicators like arrows and coin trails throughout these levels. While many other level creators try to use helpful tools maliciously, that is never the intention with anything in Super PKR World. Without message blocks or another direct equivalent for communicating with the player, creators are very reliant on using these less powerful tools to help instruct the player. That about wraps up a 1-3, however. A direct run through this level is very fast and simple, while looking around for secrets keeps you busy a while longer. The hope is to get the player somewhat accustomed to how seesaws work, as well as show them some basic puzzles involving them, such as needing to butt stomp to launch out objects like POW blocks. More complex uses of them will be coming very soon.
You made it!
With the completion of 1-3, it is time to talk about bonus stages! One of these optional stages are found in every world and will always be easily identified by the one-up house they guard. If you are the completionist type, feel free to try to take them all down, but the stages themselves tend to be a bit quirky. Aside from their actual difficulty trending higher than the world they're found in, these stages usually have a central gimmick or puzzle element that strays from more traditional level design. In the case of this level, Fraudulent Fungi, this gimmick is the use and abuse of the poisonous mushrooms found in nighttime grassland stages. You'll have to make use of these misbehaving riscarine mushrooms to progress forward, so the intro tries to show you the ropes on how poisonous and standard mushrooms behave in this scenario. Observing your surroundings is key if you wish to survive these less straightforward stages. Arrows and coin trails are always there to try and help you. Pay attention to them, as they usually just want to direct your focus to something important. In the case of the first puzzle, it wanted you to see the poisonous mushroom moving along the top of the screen. In other cases, you need to pay attention to paths on the floor. Stay sharp and try not to bite into a rather unfortunate snack. The sheer number of ways that the different kinds of power-ups can be used in the Night Grasslands theme is kinda nuts. These unique interactions are the very lifeblood of how Super Mario Maker works, but I still wanted to keep things relatively simple for the first bonus stage. Really, with the exception of one or two little positioning-related brain teasers, the one thing this level wants you to do the most is, well, dodge! I think one of my only real gripes about the nighttime stages is the music. All the standard themes get converted into these very subtle, music box-esque versions of their former selves. And while it's neat from a flavor standpoint, it does tend to make the track far less interesting. The result of this is I often just swap in one of the other available songs instead. Now, you may recall my mentioning of there being certain elements I tried to make a central theme of each world. The seesaws are making their return once more here in this bonus stage. Getting these positioned just right to be used for a puzzle without you being able to just jump straight to them was very fiddly. Seesaws may be one of the most frustrating elements to work with beyond using it as an unstable platform, so good luck with those. Also, a small tip, I suppose, for dealing with a very poisonous pursuit of putrid pests. The poisonous mushrooms are pretty easy to clump together by jumping over them and leading them into corners. So if you want to quickly defuse their overall threat, just take a second and bunch them together. This section right here, though, this is the most likely spot for someone to get a little stumped. The goal is to lead a poisonous mushroom all the way to the top of this room by guiding it along the seesaws and note blocks. Semi-solids are used to allow you to move the mushroom all the way into the corner before getting it to try and jump onto the seesaws. The movement can be a little tricky, but you have plenty of time, so take it slow if you need to. The recorded run ended up being very sloppy here. Most unfortunate, but that's how it goes sometimes. This is the last major obstacle before the end of the stage, at least. Just one more small challenge left to overcome. Boom Boom, no matter the shape, size, or power-up state, always tends to be a bit of a joke. Just deal with them in the usual manner and collect your reward. The big thing about bonus stages is they not only have a one-up house as reward, but you are also rewarded with several lives for reaching the end of them. Each one ends in a room filled to the brim with coins, lives, or both. Do your best to survive, and you may be able to come out with a substantial life profit. Larry's Leaning Lair is an interesting beast. My goal was to make the castle stages a little harder than the world they take place in, but there's no doubt in my mind that I overdid it a little with this one in particular. The stage itself, unsurprisingly, has a heavy focus on seesaws. With this being the world's Super Mario World engine stage, naturally the use of the unique upward item kicking is required. Super PKR World at the very least expects you to know each engine's basic mechanics if you want to be able to finish it. I did my best to try and prevent any potential soft locks with this collection of levels, thus including such elements as the conveyors to push the P-switch back to you if you overshoot, and the ability to run back and grab a new one if you end up pressing it. Getting soft locked is never a good feeling, so ample testing should always be done, even for simple stages. The world does contain one known soft lock, but thankfully no others have cropped up yet. Sometimes it can be tricky to come up with new ways to use a simple element, but this stage actually hit me with a very simple idea. I've not been making much use of enemies being on seesaws. The swaying motion of the platform can make it a little trickier to accurately jump on an enemy, or move out of the way of them when on a vine. So the Leaning Lair certainly has its collection of enemies that like to stay attached to platforms. Being the first world, I avoided using particularly dangerous enemies in this situation, however, so often the solo swingers will just be red Koopa Troopas. This did get me thinking about a game that helped influence some of my decision-making when creating these levels, though. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Said game really gets into evolving familiar concepts as much as possible, but unlike a simpler game, it's not afraid to evolve multiple obstacles together, interweaving them. In this stage's case, it is the adding vines into the seesaw equation, and further trying more obstacles with the two incorporated together. If that makes any sense. It probably doesn't. Oh, the word manatee! Regardless, though, Super Mario Maker's vertical camera remains a bit of an untamable pest even in this second iteration, so sections like this one are more difficult than necessary. If you do not wish to bash your head into a Koopa's foot, take things slow on the vines rather than charging up at full speed like I tend to see most people do. The last little obstacle before the boss is just a quick race section. After all, this world's had lots of seesaws and P-switch shenanigans. Why not end off by using the two together? There are very few enemies here, so dying should not happen, but there's always room to trip. The addition of the Koopalings is one of my favorites from the world update. Super Mario Maker always had a severe lack of unique boss AIs to work with, so these little troublemakers end up filling that gap wonderfully. With Larry, I called back a little to his Super Mario World fight by having him primarily stick to the unstable platform in the center. It is technically possible to get him to swim in the lava, but the little fellas do try to actively avoid offing themselves. Spending some time messing about with the Koopaling room designs and how their AI changes with power-ups makes for a surprising variety of different takes on the boss fights. A small note, each final castle stage tries to incorporate small elements from the upcoming world into the final screen. In this one's case, the vines and mushrooms indicating that the next world will be the forest world. Either way, that is it for World 1. Months of hindsight tell me that the castle could have stood to be a little easier, but I'm still pretty happy with how these stages all looked and played. Well, maybe Fraudulent Fungi could have used some more aesthetics, but Mario on Grassland is kinda ugly by default anyways. Regardless, thanks for watching this developer commentary run thus far, and I hope to see you in World 2! Take care!